Next 3 weeks.
It turned out to be okay.
Okay, welcome everyone to our September 18th, 2023, 9 o'clock strategic planning meeting. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. And we will go ahead and get started with Scott Chesney.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for the time. We're here to talk a little bit about the connection between the upcoming comprehensive plan update, the 2026 update, and the coordinated water service plan, which you've heard about in the past and has not been updated in some time. What we're looking to do is ultimately update at least the technical parts of that document as part of the comprehensive plan update to give us a better sense of, in fact, what is the situation with water and water providers throughout Spokane County. As you heard in last year's comprehensive plan updates, some water providers are in fact close to their limits in terms of being able to provide additional taps. That was an eye-opener for us and for me personally. I think many of us have that assumption that's because we live over the giant aquifer, that it's an almost infinite source of water, and that just simply is not the case for most of Spokane County. And so having this water plan is a critical element for us if we're going to look not just at the 20-year horizon for a comprehensive plan, but really take that, the 20-year statutory horizon, but look at, where are we going to grow in 50 years? Where are we going to grow if the population, pushes 1.5 million or 2 million people in Spokane and Kootenai counties? And so having a better sense of where that water plan goes is really critical. What we are with you today is to talk about your thoughts on that particular approach, and also the ability of using some of our commerce funding and as part of that comprehensive plan to either hire experts or work on updating the water service plan itself. And to that degree, we're also looking for partners. This is not a Spokane County government effort itself. As you know from our painful capital facilities process, we do not control water districts. We have no influence over them, but yet we are somehow responsible for our own planning to take them into account. We are going to be putting this on the steering committee of elected officials agenda for their October meeting with your guidance, with the idea that asking for partnerships, both in terms of staff cooperation, but also potentially funding partnerships from all of the communities that will be receiving some monies from Commerce to do their upcoming plans. So with that broad intro, I guess I'd ask Rob to give you kind of a quick overview of what this document is and why it's important to move forward.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Scott. Good morning, Commissioners. Rob Lindsay, Environmental Services, Public Works. The Coordinated Water System Plan, the current version that we're operating under was updated in 1999. And so it's the very same plan. In a nutshell, coordinated water system plans are basically plans that the purveyors have a significant input into, because it really is a plan that defines how water systems work together to be most efficient at providing water for the communities. And then the process has landed in the county's lap because we resonate with all of them. But the current plan, these plans have, and I'm going to read off just some of the regulatory requirements that need to go in these plans. One of them is an area-wide water system development, area-wide water system design standards and fire flow performance standards. Now, I just bring that up as a specific example because we have inconsistent standards across the county with different fire districts, which has been an issue for some of our water purveyors. Another item within a coordinated water systems plan, within these plans, is identification of future service areas and service area agreements. Okay, so it's identifying where are these water service providers going to serve. They update these every 5 years. Sometimes they change them, sometimes they don't. And it's been my experience in 20 years at the county that we've typically just been on the receiving end of that. We're informed where they have water, where it isn't. Sometimes we become surprised by that with proposed changes to the comp plan, and then all of a sudden, here's a whole area that doesn't even have a water provider providing water there anymore. And then, so then the developers are wondering where that water is going to come from. So then, in a situation like that, then the CWSP would instruct those two, the water purveyors most closely aligned with that, to get together and work it out. Invariably, then they contact us as well, and we become somewhat of a referee at times or an advocate at times. But again, it's more of a reactive process at that point than a proactive planning process. And so the coordinated water system plan that we currently have, we've I personally and Mike Hermanson, who used to work in our group, we've come to you before and we've provided updates on this. We did a number of years ago receive about $30,000 to do an administrative update, and then that was right about when COVID happened, and so we didn't do that. And then because we didn't have the staff, and nor were we able to really get all the water purveyors together, because a process of updating the plan really involves getting everybody together. And so we're still running on the same plan. It limps along. It does what it's intended to do, but it could be far more efficient, and it can help the county check a box as part of our comprehensive planning for the water general plan element of comprehensive plan. And I defer to Jeff and Scott on that, as they have a better handle on the comp plan elements than I do, but just on the coordinated water system planning and the relationships that we've developed with the purveyors over the years doing our water quality messaging and so forth. We're well positioned to work with the agencies. We've just been challenged with having the funding to do this. When we did this around 1999, it was with a grant from Health for about $200,000. And as I understand, and this is before I joined the county, but as I recall and understand from Bruce Rawls, former utilities director, even that wasn't enough to do it. So I'm thinking that it would be on the low end 300,000 and potentially as high as 400 if we were to hire a consultant and pull the community together and do this, and have staff from both probably environmental services and building and planning involved in that process.
One of the things we've learned in the last couple of years, notably through the capital facilities plan process, is how many of these things have been slowly disconnected from comprehensive planning at the county, and they kind of exist in their own silos now, and we're trying to get our arms around that to bring it back, notably because it's in this case, it's really hard to think about how you're going to plan for growth if you don't know where you have water. I mean, it's kind of a fundamental thing. In others, it's to try to put our house in order so that we get ourselves and keep ourselves in compliance with the Growth Management Act. Once we're in compliance, then we can stretch that envelope a little bit and do some creative things. So this is one of those critical elements of trying to bring that back under the umbrella of comprehensive planning for pretty much the obvious reason of once we start growing beyond our borders and adjust our urban growth boundaries, we need to know if it through capital facilities, not that we need to know if there's water available for these things to be served. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're here before you today is kind of get your feel for particularly the partnership idea through the steering committee of trying to offer a chance for the entire county level of governments to come together and ante up a little bit into the card game here and say, can we all put this thing together and update it, since it hasn't been done for 40 years. So we're looking for thoughts and suggestions, and I guess our opportunity is what we're going to put together for that October 18th or 12th meeting with the steering committee and that partnership idea.
Commissioner Waldron.
Well, it can't hurt to ask everyone to contribute. Is there any sources of funds from DOH or other sources for ongoing, planning around water
Yes,
in Washington? I'm not familiar with what their funding sources are.
about 2 years ago, Washington Department of Health, their regional planner, reached out to me and informed me of a potential funding opportunity. Basically, he put together a wish list, if you will, of a few $1 million, and he included our project in there. I reached out to him early last week in preparation for this briefing. I've not heard back on the status of that funding, but as soon as I learn that, I'll let you know. But I'm not putting a lot of faith in it, but it's a potential opportunity. But other than that,
We're looking at kind of a two-part funding strategy. One, like Rob is talking about, that would be the more directly technical aspect of updating this. The other would be asking for the municipalities to use some small share of their planning grant and contribute this, because water is so essential to everybody's versions. And you need to bring in 10% of your money from commerce and put it in this pool so we can create a scope of work here. The funding grant dollars, Spokane County is eligible for $700,000, which is a nice number until you start looking at the actual scope of work that you have to put together. We'll use every dime of that to make this thing happen. Some of the other communities, on the other hand, are likely to not be going through the kind of massive comp plan update that we will be doing. They will have perhaps money left over, because for purposes, it's not that we are given a $700,000 check. We sign a contract with Commerce. We essentially get reimbursed for the costs we actually encumber in this thing. And so the idea that some of the communities that might not need all of their funds to update their plans, it might be a fairly innocuous way for them to contribute to at least part of this project while we're looking for other funds as well.
So, seems to me, I remember that we've got like 31 water districts in the county, 31, 32 water districts.
Group
That
A.
number is 38 now?
No, I don't know exactly how many there are, Commissioner, but there's at least that many.
Yeah, so the number 6 in my head's 31, but I could be wrong. But quite a few of them are in the valley, basically east of the city of Spokane. And they were predominantly, originally they were ag water districts, and have tried to transition into municipal water districts. And I don't know where the status is of that, but does that affect what we do with regard to the planning here? If they still are ag-based water districts as opposed to metropolitan, I think their limits are much more tied to the water rights that they possess, as opposed to having inquired water rights like the city of Spokane does. Is that accurate?
I think for the most part, yes. We learned last year, for example, that Irrigation District 3, which serves water on the northeast part of our area, the metro area, was limited in their remaining domestic water supply, but had really enormous water supply in their irrigation basket, so to speak. They were working with ecology to change that water right, to be able to move, or essentially to make all of their water rights fungible, so you could use it for anything. They were successful at doing that during the time we did our comp plan amendments. There will certainly be more of that that's going on, but Rob has the details. There are going to be districts that, if growth goes in their direction, they do not have sufficient water rights to serve. So they will have to buy water. They will have to come up with some other mechanism to make that happen. And the other thing that's not driving this so much, but is like on the horizon, Idaho is apparently now going through an adjudication process for the water in the Spokane Valley Western Prairie Aquifer. That sounds innocuous until it's like, well, now we've adjudicated all of the water in your aquifer and you have to buy it from us.
Yeah.
You know, that's a scary thing. We know the state of Washington is doing that in a couple of counties on the west side, and Spokane County is poised for that. But there is no adjudication of our water rights right now in our area, and you know that's something that will provide a great deal of certainty in the future. But it's also something that we need to get ahead of so that we're in a better position to drive our metropolitan population.
And Spokane has been in a position to adjudicate for the last 20 years, and is just, the state has not been in a position where they've supported moving forward with that.
Right.
It's sleep at the wheel or whatever, I don't know what it is, but you're right. I mean, if Idaho takes all the water, guess what, we're buying from them. Are the water districts that are in most peril the ones on the north side of the county?
I don't know that I can answer that. I'm only familiar with the one that we dealt with District 3 specifically last year.
How do we get an idea about which water districts are in good shape, moderate shape, and on the edge to failing?
That's the point of the
Yeah,
CWSP. That's the exact point of the CWSP.
Okay, so
is
that's
we
what
don't
this
have-
will reveal for us.
Yeah, so the whole
Okay.
idea is that we'll use the CWSP to kind of fill in the capital facilities funding for water to find out exactly where are the district boundaries now, because they've changed and we've not been great at keeping up our maps.
Yeah, we know where they
Somewhere.
are.
But it's not in our capital facilities plan. So we should update that, and then also what are the water rights, and then I don't know that there's a process for intertie agreements in the CWSP, so we were gonna really, kind of tighten that up. And then there's also there's a process in which before the Department of Health approves their water plans, the plan is sent to the county. There's not been an excellent plan or an excellent process outlined on our end on who receives that and what they're reviewing and how that's approved. So it's kind of slipped through the cracks on our end on how closely we're making sure that they actually do coordinate with our plan. But the CWSP would nail down who's in trouble. The last we checked, Pasadena Park, Vera, and Water District 3, and then I think Whitworth a little bit, just in certain locations, we're having difficulty. And certainly Airway Heights and the city of Spokane is another area where the CWSP could really kind of discuss how that's going to be covered. But we're thinking that excellent partners would include the Valley, which is highly dependent on a lot of this this coordination, and then also Airway Heights. And we have broached the subject to some extent with the planners and the PTAC that the cities are going to be asked more and more to assist with their UGA planning for those facilities. And I think as that becomes more apparent, they will be more inclined to jump on board to things like this and funding, because it's going to benefit them.
So you have two issues to deal with regard to the water districts. You've got their access to water and then their ability to distribute the water. And, I know that for the city of Spokane, they've got enough water to handle us for the next 100 years, but they've not invested in the infrastructure necessary to distribute that water. And so they found that now some of their pipes are undersized. They don't have the distribution lines to be able to get the water where they need it the most. And, they're investing in reservoirs and a bunch of other stuff to try and improve the system. God bless them. That's terrific. But just want to make sure that when we look at the water districts, we know exactly what the constraints are. Is it infrastructure? We can fix that. If it's access to water, that's a whole nother conversation.
You made a very good point earlier, Commissioner, about the objective here is to really understand who has water and who doesn't, what their situation is. I can speak from direct experience over the last 2 decades of doing watershed planning that the water providers play the cards very close to their vest. And they are also in the midst of converting these irrigation rights to municipal rights. The state has great interest in reducing the unit value of agricultural uses to municipal uses. Okay? And I'll speak for the water purveyors somewhat loosely here by saying there's great concern with going to the state to convert those water rights, because then they know that they're going to engage legally and they could wind up losing water on paper by doing that. And so a number of years ago, when Spokane County initiated watershed planning, frankly, a lot of the responses I got were, talk to the hen, Rob. It's kind of I would ask, do you have enough water? Yep. You have enough water for 20 years? Yep. Got any problems? Nope. Okay. And it was like, they didn't want to talk. But now people are coming out. We just had a water district from the Valley, Irvin, come and see us. Okay. They're running out of water. I think Moab just recently had a relatively favorable decision from Water Resources, and I think they were able to convert some of their irrigation to municipal. But they keep this pretty close to their vest. They don't talk about it. So, but I think we need, this is a process for us to get to know them better.
So we've talked in the past, because the state is not the state has not demonstrated a desire to keep housing inside the state of Washington. They're happy to just let it go across the state line into Post Falls. But we've talked about the discharge we have out of the wastewater treatment facility and whether that water could be included in the inventory of water rights that we might be able to control. And I know that you've reached out to Ecology and EPA, and we're still waiting for some kind of definitive answer out of them with regard to that. But is that something we need to start pursuing more aggressively to be able to access that water? Because, that's water that, technically we could take that water and dump it up at Saltese Flats.
Yes, we would. Of course, that would be a significant cost.
Significant cost, but
Yes.
But based upon our permit, we could just take all that water out of the aquifer
It's
or
my
out of the
understanding.
river anyway and dump it up onto the Saltese Flats.
Technically and legally, we own that water.
Yes,
That's my understanding. I'm not,
Yeah.
not an attorney.
and I like your understanding.
Thank you. I've been warned, and I've talked to a number of my peers in the state who have pursued water reclamation permits from state health, and they will tell you that it's a long and expensive process legally to do that. The state is going to likely push back because of the in-stream flow rule in the river. We want to keep our 10 or 12 cubic feet per second, which isn't that much water, but it's some water. It's a possibility, Commissioner, but it would be a long road, I think,
Unless we could possibly get some help from the legislature.
if we could.
So that then becomes a potential for legislative priority for us.
Yeah.
If we're going to support growth, we need water, we have water, just let us use it.
Yeah. Well, I'm bullish on the idea of looking at aquifer recharge with our effluent.
Yeah.
We'll get into the argument of how clean is clean on that one. But we certainly are coming to terms with how difficult it is to discharge to rivers, and we're understanding what those impacts are going to be. We generate in this community close to 40 million gallons a day.
Yeah.
So what's the best place to put that? Certainly that's a community discussion.
And that's not exactly new. I mean, many states
Yeah.
are using reclaimed water.
Yeah.
The purple pipe system, you can see where the reclaimed water is going. It's well settled science. When Rob says how clean is clean, well, there are standards for that.
Yeah.
So
Las Vegas is built on that concept.
Mhm.
They've got purple pipe everywhere.
yeah, most of Phoenix, same thing.
Yeah.
So, again, for me, this has been a long time coming, a discussion like this to really engage more with the water purveyors. If there's an opportunity for collective funding amongst the various municipalities, jurisdictions of elected officials, that's an exciting opportunity for me.
So what's the best case desired outcome if we go down this process?
In our perspective, it would be have an accurate coordinated water system plan that shows who has water rights and who has actual capacity and the infrastructure to deliver that in areas for growth. That would be something that would really inform the idea that as the communities start to talk about their urban growth areas and expansion, it's like, well, you know, we've I'd say warned them, but we've advised that UGA discussion is going to be totally dependent on capital facilities. You have to be able to show you can in fact afford to grow here. Well, water is going to be one of those fundamental efforts to do that. So I mean, we look at it on the planning as pretty fundamental or a pretty basic thing of we need to know more about where our water is, who has it, who can distribute it, if we're going to plan effectively for growth with our client communities. I think there's a more technical role of updating this just to know who's got what share of the water in the basin. But from our perspective, it's kind of about water and geography. You know, who's got it, where is it, and can we use it?
Okay, so that's the best case scenario. What do you think is the likely outcome? Do you think these water districts are going to want to share that information? Are they going to want to participate and play in this? Because I mean, like you said, previously they've been very apprehensive at sharing that. Do you think they will participate? Are half of them going to participate? A quarter of them going to want to share? What do you think?
Rob has much more experience in this, but what we've seen just in the aspect of putting together the capital facilities plan amendments that you've seen last year, you're going to see again this year, these special districts. And partially because we've been very determined, we've been pestering them, frankly. They have started talking to us more and more. We're getting better information from school districts, fire districts, water districts than we have in the past because we keep asking. We keep saying, we want you to be partners in our growth, but to do that, we need to know what you can do. I'm optimistic we'll get some continued cooperation from that, with the caveat that, yeah, their model is a little bit like school districts. It's like we can't float a bond to build a school that we're going to grow into for 30 years. We have to wait till we've got kids coming out of our windows, and then we can float a bond to build a new school. They deal with a different kind of planning than we do. So with that caveat, if they can participate in that broader sense, you know, maybe we can get some better information. If need be, you know, one of the reasons of updating this plan, under the Growth Management Act, the county is the regional government. We operate with carrots for the most part. We want to partner, we want to shake hands, we want to do this. But at some point, maybe we can be a little bit more of the stick and say, okay, you have to come to the table. You've got to tell us what's going on because, you know, under GMA, it's our responsibility to make sure this works. So we've got a little bit of both incentive and, you know, perhaps it's the iron fist with the velvet glove approach.
Well, I think the county does have the leverage to do that because as part of the consistency checklist process, the county does sign off and say that this water system plan is consistent with comprehensive planning. So
Yep.
the county could just simply not approve the plan.
Well, and that's been supported all the way to state Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court said, you know, counties, you have the right to delegate growth and demand a community take growth. And so that was a case that happened on the other side of the state where, you know, the city said, yeah, we don't want any more growth. And the county had already planned that they were going to take some of the growth, and the Supreme Court upheld that. So there is precedent for that.
So what do you see as the time frame? So obviously, I think it's a good idea to bring forth this conversation to the steering committee. I think in October is our next meeting. But how do you see the time frame and the working out with the 2026 deadline? And I mean, are we going to have the time to find the funds, get the water plan done so it can be informing, you know, the June 30th deadline?
I think it's a reasonable approach. You know, we have a plan. We don't have to start from scratch. So
it's just updating what is in the
that
99
plan is, you know, maybe it's overly simplified, but okay, here are the 90 some providers that have water rights in Spokane County. There are 30 some that are that class A, class one. You know, show us your water rights on paper, show us your paper water, show us your capacity. It doesn't seem like it's really that complicated, which means I think we can do it within our planning horizon, especially if we can get kind of an agreement in principle in October to say this makes sense, and then is it 5%, is it 10%? Do we have a scope of work? Is it 50,000 or is it 200,000 to put this thing together? That seems reasonable in the first quarter of next year. Frankly, the one thing that slows us down with any of our partnerships is the time it takes to create an interlocal agreement for anything. We can agree on in principle pretty quickly, but putting together those ILAs is just brutal.
I see it about a year-long process, meetings, fairly focused facilitation and really staying on the issues, design standards. Break it into, we spoke conceptually about breaking it up into geographic areas so that we could get, better handle on, because up in the north of town, you asked about that. Water 3 and Whitworth are the big providers. Water 3's got more rights. They've got some transmission issues. Whitworth certainly has some transmission issues as well, and they're they're constrained on rights in some places also. Whitworth has a huge service area, the size of Delaware, and they'll never provide it. It's one of those things where we look back and say, do you really need to have that in your CWSP? You're going to do that? Those are the sorts of things where, my observation only, when I look at some of these CWSPs, I think when they were set up in the 90s, there was a little bit of imperialism going on there, and people are going, wow, we can do all that. And then it's just like, maybe that's not really realistic. I think there are some locations where we could more realistically identify some areas.
So we've taken quite a lot of your time. What we'd like to do is simply, with general consensus, is we will take this with your consensus. We'll take it to the steering committee for that discussion and do a test run and see where we go. And then, when we have to talk about county and city water, we'll lean on our CEO, who was over there with his hand on the water tap for a long time.
Well, and I think one of the cities you may check with, like Millwood, I think has lots of water rights. And I shouldn't say lots, but I know they have water rights, too. So even checking, this, I don't think Spokane Valley does, but I know Millwood does.
It's interesting. We're nowhere near quite where Colorado water and water law is, but we're headed in that direction. But if we can move toward an adjudicated system, then perhaps somebody or some place like a Millwood that has more water rights than they need and they know they're not going to grow, well, now they have something they can monetize, and they can sell that right. But right now, it's really hard to think about doing that. So,
On the West Plains, I think Medical Lake has got water rights and the opportunity to expand, as well as Cheney. The only one that's constrained is Airway Heights, and their constraint is more around the forever chemicals than it is access. But we resolve the thing about who owns the water. Maybe there's a solution there.
thank you for your time.
Can I add one
I'm
more
sorry.
thing? And it's something that's come to this board before. It's called the Board of Joint Control. Maybe you've heard about this. And I just wanted to remind you of this concept that some of the purveyors are looking at out in the valley. And as we described to you, some have water, some don't out in the valley. And to this point, if one water purveyor wants to buy water from another, they have to buy it through pipes in the ground. And if it has to go through a third party, then there are wheeling charges. And then it becomes very burdensome administratively. There are some water providers out there who are looking at the notion of developing a board of joint control, where if you have multiple wells in the same aquifer of different water providers, you can just merely exchange water just on paper and not having to use pipes. And that is, if I was a water district and Commissioner French was, instead of having to move water through, through Scott's water system, we just let Commissioner French pump the water and it goes directly that way.
So they
And it
came
makes
to
great
us a couple of
sense.
years ago. And I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we say go forth and form it? And we were just waiting for them to come back.
That's what I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We said that this is our intention, this is
Yeah.
what we look to do, and so we were like, all right, keep us in the loop,
Go
and
for it.
Mr.
they've never
Carroll
come back.
And his clients are still looking at that. They're getting a lot of pushback from ecology on that. There's been exchange there. Anyway, I just wanted to remind you of
No surprise.
the concept. It's being-
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can't believe it's a state standing there.
You're usually selling comment.
Yeah, it's just so friendly.
Customer service oriented.
Yes.
Good luck, steering committee.
How do you find that? Shake down like cities.
Okay, welcome, Randy and Tessa. We're so excited to open our binders.
We are.
Randy seems very
Peter
excited.
Binders.
They said
So,
they need the general.
Actually, if you want to, Ron, if you want to kind of throw up today's agenda.
The link that we sent, yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Yes. So where we wanted to start it today, we want to start first with some general fund expenses. Then we'll talk about the interest income, follow up on that discussion from last week. Have some more information on that. For example, if you have some numbers that I know Mary had brought up, for the enterprise funds, well, what if we didn't take that, or what if we didn't take it for roads? What would that look like for us? And then we'll just kind of get into a capital funding matrix. It's a spreadsheet we'll be sending out to you later, either this week or the following week, but just want to show you how that works. And then just kind of talk about any presentations you're going to want. So to start with, on the expenses, first place I'd like to start is under non-departmental. So if you have your book with you, it would be tab number 20. Or if you're doing it electronically, is the non-departmental tab. And on the 11th page in that tab is a spreadsheet that looks like this. It talks about all the outside agencies. It's the 11th page into the book under that tab, or the 11th page on your PDF. And so these are the outside agencies that we currently have in the budget. And then starting on page 16 and through the rest of that tab are some requests from people outside, some additional monies they would like, over and above what they had last year, just requests. And so we really need some direction as to what do the commissioners want to expend in this area? Are we cutting some of these back? Are we increasing some? Are we adding others? Currently, we are sitting in a position where revenue exceeds expenses by $760,000. However, we have not built anything into this plan for capital purchases. So to kind of level set where we're at. So as we add to this, of course, that 760 goes down. And so just want to, whether we make decisions today or if we have to come back in 2 weeks, but I think this is an important area we need your input on, the AGC Head Start to Construction. I think it's a very popular program. There are other programs like that out there. Are we going to go with multiple programs on that? What is the commissioner's wishes? Last year we did the Northwest MAC where we funded an exhibit coming. Are we going to do that again this next year? I think they had a request in here. Did they not? Or did they not have a
Can't
request?
remember. Heather from the grants team went and coordinated with lots of our outside agencies to get their applications in time for us to include them in all of this information.
Do they have a,
Chase Youth Foundation increased, I believe, their request a little bit.
So what would be helpful in the future would be, here's, instead of saying preliminary 2024, saying 2023, and then having another column that says, here's the
Alright,
request.
I can bring that back. We'll send that to you
We can circulate that.
in an email later today, okay?
Okay, because that would just be helpful to see what
Sure.
the additional requests are, and if there's others.
So the MAC is requesting 25,000 again this year. It's again in one of those in the back.
And I can say for Wasac, I mean, we're anticipating a 6% increase.
6%.
But we will not know until the board meets later this week. So the executive committee will be presenting that to the board.
Yeah.
And then it's not official until it goes to the membership meeting in November, but that's what I can say is we plan on some of the anticipation.
What kind of spend-happy president do they have? What is going on?
We have to hold our budget flat.
Didn't we have a discussion with last, did we bring up NACO? Or not, yeah,
The Waco,
Waco, because
that
none of us participate in Waco. We do all the NACO stuff. Did we?
the
Whether,
discussion was whether to leave it here or
or
add it to the
into
budget.
the
Yeah,
department budget,
distribute
but
it.
no matter what we do, it's not going to help our general fund
Correct,
budgets.
correct.
It's just, do we budget it here
Yeah.
and control it, or do we put it out into the auditor, assessor, sheriff, judges, and then maybe it morphs into something more where we don't really see it, line itemed out. I think from a control standpoint, if you budget it here, you at least taking it from maybe growing more if it's split up anyways.
Well, because that's split up amongst all of the
Right, but so,
independent electeds.
exactly. And if we did that, then they're trying to budget and guess, and they might not break it out in detail.
But if it's part of their budget, then as it comes to them from
Right.
Waco, then they're providing that influence over the budget increases, just like we are at
So we
Wasac.
can definitely split it out if you'd like to.
So I'd say, probably not this year, but next year they need to start to have it in their budget and be aware, and we can, provide that for them in their budget, this time. But I think it's just, then it's up to them to be monitoring their own association, because we're not monitoring Waco. We're monitoring Wasac and trying to make sure that we're not doing increases that are outrageous or any of that.
So we will plan in '25 to put it into those department budgets.
And give them this
Yes,
year.
we'll let them know this year that that is gonna be in their budgets. They'll need to plan for it. And we'll probably do an even split, I imagine, with each of the.
Well, so what I'm trying to think is, as next year you say, if we don't want you to increase your budget, it should get,
They will have to increase for that amount of
Yeah.
fees.
but it'll be coming from here, so they're
Right.
not,
It's coming out of this one and it's going in that one, should be a net zero.
yes, but then they've got to start to plan, but that's what they.
They just need to, that's an expense that each department is gonna have to plan for their portion of the Waco membership.
And we can leave Waco here and just say it's, divided up amongst the independent electeds.
I know the consulting that goes through when.
The second, Commissioner Jordan had a
What is
question.
that, MJV Consulting?
That's our lobbyist.
Oh,
Mike
okay,
Burgess.
got it.
And his contract goes through next year, I think. I think it expires in '24. Yes,
SRTC, where is that at?
That is paid out of the county road fund.
Got it, thank you. So,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna ask you a question. With regard to the chamber dues, I mean, we've tried to be supportive of all the chambers. over the years and stuff, but I'm wondering whether it makes any sense for us to establish some kind of metric, because right now it's kind of arbitrary. If we were to say, maybe so much per member and distribute it that way, or so much per population, I don't know. I'm just trying to find some kind of metric that is demonstrable compared to just being arbitrary. And maybe arbitrary is the best we could do, but just put it out there for your consideration, and have to think about it and see if there's a better way to do this. So if you took the GSI, the West Plains, all the other chambers, and either contributed to them based on the membership, I don't even know what the right metric is, but just an idea, trying to put some kind of predictability to it. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense on the smaller ones. On GSI, I mean, partly GSI is our economic development arm.
Yeah.
So they're kind of in a different category, so I wouldn't put GSI in that. For the others, I could see doing something like that.
Okay. Just an idea.
But I think I don't know, Mark, I think, was supposed to come back in and talk to us about, you were saying you wanted to increase the West Plains.
He was going to make a request that we increase the contribution to the West Plains, and I said, well, put together a package and stuff, and I haven't seen the package
Okay.
yet, so.
And I think that was the last time we talked about it.
I'm just waiting for him. And then the other thing is, we always give money to Unity in the community, but we never budget for it. Should we budget for it or not?
Yes, I think we've given like $1,000 sponsorship.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we moved to was just buying a booth. I thought. I could be wrong on that, but I thought, and I don't know what those booths cost, and I don't know if anybody manned our, did we have a booth?
I believe we did have a booth, and
Okay.
I believe HR typically helps coordinate that
Okay.
process.
Okay.
And yeah, so what we've done is just kind of put $6,000 into events under outside agencies, and then if Unity in the community is one that wants to be sponsored, then we would pay for that or any other kind of events out of that $6,000.
But you have been putting
It'd be nice to know what we did
It's
spend.
about $1,000.
Yeah.
Okay, but what
And
makes up?
we'll get you a list of the ones that you actually gave to in 22 and 23.
So would that have come out of the other miscellaneous dues and expos, the 17.7 there?
Unity in the community would have come out of the 6,000 you see under bike swaps. There's 6,000 just the other miscellaneous
All
events.
other miscellaneous?
Right.
Okay,
So we just kind of took the total of what you've been spending the last few
Got it.
years.
got it.
So that's the-
Unity in the community has been an annual one.
Yeah, there's a aerospace thing over in Coeur d'Alene that we do, and that's like $1,500, $2,000 we do that. And then Unity and some of the others that we've done. Yeah, miscellaneous.
Oh. Okay.
Okay,
That was,
and I think the sponsorship gives us a booth, provides us.
is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jordan?
I just wanted to say, I was recently invited, and I don't know if we all were invited, I think we might have been to the PEP graduation, pre-employment preparation program. Seems like that's pretty similar to the AGC Head Start to Construction, and I got to go to a couple graduations for that program. Most recently at the Carl Maxey Center. It was really cool to see the graduates and kind of the job skills that they had learned. It seems like it's a partnership of various kind of building and construction trades unions. And they did make a verbal request of me for some similar funding to the funding that the AGC receives. So I haven't, like Commissioner Frentz, received a package or anything in writing requesting that, but I think it's something that maybe I could go back to them and say, if you have a request, put it in writing and send it to the board. I'd certainly be interested in looking at that as kind of complementary to the AGC effort. I know we're limited, but it's a really good cause. So
So it is, it did come before us, I don't know. I don't know if I should be the one speaking since obviously I'm part of ADC. But the ADC was up and started and going, and then there was some personality issues as to what then started PEP. And they came to us along with Sheriff Ozzie at the time and requested additional funding, and we said no at that point in time, that we were committed to the AGC model. AGC is actually, because it's very similar as to what AGC is already doing. And so that was just what our decision was at that point in time, that we were sticking with the one that we knew was working and doing well. And I think if the AGC ones graduate a higher number of people at each time than the PEP, and the PEP is shorter, I think it's 4 weeks instead of 6 weeks. So there's just differences between the two that we looked at and made decisions on when we made that funding. So you're welcome to bring it forward.
I think they have 2 years of data now, so they can share what the success rate has been for employment.
That's helpful background. And I'll just connect with them and find out if they're interested in continuing to pursue it. But I was just really impressed with the graduates seemed really excited and had learned a lot, and it seemed like a great partnership to consider. So I'll keep you posted on that.
And we can have an offline conversation as well.
Victoria reminded me that what Mark was looking for was 7,500 as opposed to 2,000. And I said, put together a package to justify it.
Yeah, I think that's what we've got to figure out. Because like, I know when we increased the Valley Chambers, because it was lower, it was because we were sponsoring an event and we were doing more, they're doing all the ribbon cuttings and all of that for GSI as well as
And it
Valley.
moved us to another level of and I don't remember if that was their municipal sponsorship level, is that what they call it?
So then
The municipal sponsorship.
we're
We're visionary with GSI, municipal level with Valley Chambers, so.
so that way at every event we're shown as a participant.
I don't know, does West Plains have levels like that, where they
Yeah,
call
they-
you something different, or you get benefits?
Well, they do have different levels and stuff, and so I can get the breakdown for you of that and stuff, bring it back to you and stuff. And they do have names they call you and stuff, so, yeah.
Hopefully all good.
It's all good. It's all good.
So just following up, Commissioner French was talking about that 17,700 of the other miscellaneous dues or expos. Are they in that category there because they're related to economic development, or what's, okay. So can you give me a couple examples of?
I was gonna say, can you
That's
provide?
It would be that like I-90 aerospace conference.
conference,
Yep,
yeah.
that's one of those, something that's typically driving economic development in the region. But yeah, we'll get a list put together for both other categories of what's been spent the last several years.
Just take this spreadsheet and put 2012, 2013 budget,
2022, not
Would that also, would that 17.7 also be like, say if we bought, like we get a table at the state of the county, but we wanted to buy a second one, would that come out of that?
It could come out of that pot as well.
Okay, so things like that, some of the events that we don't get a comped table at
So
would
can you
come out of
provide a
that.
listing as to
Okay.
what currently we're spending out of that categories, in each of those miscellaneous?
And the big one on here, of course, the very top one is the health district. Have we heard anything?
We are working through the budget right now.
Okay.
We just, the Budget and Finance Committee met last week. I anticipate that we'll probably stay at the 2 million. The TV is probably gonna go up, because that is just based on,
That's based on population.
no, it's not based on population,
It's based on actual
expenses,
expenditures.
which is RCW required,
Right.
so we don't have a choice on that.
And you're thinking that's going up though?
Yes, I will just say because of kind of the influx of the migrant population that is coming into Spokane County, we are seeing higher cases.
Percentage, 10, 20%? What do you have any ideas?
I
Okay.
don't know, it's gonna be
350?
significant. I think it's gonna be in the 300 range.
Okay.
But that's based on what they feel like, but that's also based on reimbursement. I mean, so we only reimburse actual costs. But I think we know it's increasing.
301,
Yeah, not
Get some work with you.
So I should probably put something like mid-threes in the budget for now as a placeholder.
Yeah, probably 350.
Okay.
Let's find it.
Got it.
The number you have in there for Clean Air is the latest invoice number.
I believe that was provided to us.
Yes, we got a letter from Clean Air. That was a rather large increase.
That was a large increase, that's right. Yeah. Some of our funding from the state went away, so.
We wanna have a placeholder if we end up doing a federal lobbyist? We've had that
Yeah,
discussion.
we did put that, it wasn't in this section.
It's-
I did put 100,000 into this budget. It's in non-departmental.
Okay.
Under other professional
Other
services.
professionals, we did put 100,000 into this budget that you have before you for that.
So we may want to put it in here just so
So you can see
can
it.
really see
We'll
it.
move it. We'll
Yeah.
move that.
And then I think, again, it'd be good to see what 2023
We'll put
was.
22 and 23 year-to-date, 23 budget and 24, what we have in there for now.
Just a general question.
Yes.
How does that 2 million for the health district get set? What's that? Is that just a function of their budget process?
It's part of their budget process of their local needs. So, because like getting grants and all of that, you've got to have some match money and different funds that way. And so it's what can be paid for out of local dollars versus grant dollars. So we haven't really raised it over the years. So that's always a question we get, but I think we're gonna be able to do what we need to do within the 2 million as they've gotten a little bit more in state funding on public health dollars. I think we can keep that where we're at.
So the health district sets its budget and then basically makes a request for a certain amount to the board.
Correct. We were at 1.8 for a number of years in a row, and then they made the request and said, we need 2 million, and we met that need.
So actually, we went above, I think at one time they actually requested like 2.2, 2.3 million. We funded it at that level and then we dropped it down because couldn't continue to fund it at that level.
Yeah, it's always been 1.8 since I've been here then too,
So the cities aren't contributing anything to the district yet. Yeah.
No, and with the change in the health district board makeup, it's harder to go request that. It's where a lot of things, it was not the best legislation, put it that way. It was working well before. So.
Well, not funding wise, it wasn't.
No, but Kevin was at the point where we had everything ready to go.
We're close,
And then
yeah.
the spreadsheet to figure out based on population and all of that to start to seek additional funding, and then
State stuff.
legislation changed.
All it would have taken was a vote of every city to agree to pitch in, so.
So I think it's something, we can look at in the future, but
So could we, this is hypothetical, but
you're
Could we-
vice chair now, so.
could we shift the focus to the health district to just include the unincorporated area then? No, never mind.
No.
Just asking.
No.
No comment.
There's still a lot of statutory duties
I
required from the
know.
health district, so I don't anticipate the 2 million. I think
We'll stay about the same.
the finance committee was pretty sure we could get to that number. So
Anything else, any other comments on that page? We'll get you, later today, we'll send out that spreadsheet for you so you can see 22, 23, and 24. I know we have it, we just hit the cells on here, so. any other expenses you wanted to talk about? I know Mr. French talked about the get out of town monies that went up in here. This budget does have about another $500,000. It's basically in one department. I don't know if you, what action you would like to take. Do you want to have that department do a presentation on that, or are you just going to take action without a presentation? What's your wish?
So I missed the first part, so which
So there was, when we were talking about this last week, there was a big jump in travel. And evidently the majority of that travel expense is coming from the sheriff's office, and to the tune of $500,000. And so I questioned it and got a little bit of background, but it really, I think it probably demands a presentation from the sheriff's office to say, why, what's driving this? I mean, $500,000 that's a lot of travel. So,
Well, and it doubled. It was
Yeah.
500,000, now it's $1 million.
yeah.
So,
Their history was they used to run about $250,000. 22, they ran $500,000, but part of that I believe is COVID catch-up because a lot of travel didn't happen in COVID.
sure.
Through August, they've spent $300,000 this year. And that includes recruiting and travel. And the budget for all three categories is 1.35 for next year, so it is quite a large
That's the
increase.
request.
That's the request, yes. So we will put that on the list of departments to have them. Is there anything else in the sheriff's office you want them to, when they come before you? Are there other areas? Everything else when I looked at it, everything else looked where I would expect it to be. The only other thing is if you want to have a discussion about what is their fleet policy, you've put a lot of money into vehicles lately. Do they have a plan as to when they replace them? I don't know if they do. Is that something you want to find out if they have a plan?
I think as long as they're coming, there's gonna be just a lot of questions. I mean, we're gonna have the new, kind of.
But I'd like them to be prepared for the questions, I guess.
How are they anticipating operating the training center? What is that looking like for them? Obviously the helicopters are gonna be one of the things that we talked about. Just trying to think. I mean, it's just.
Crime Center, right?
Yeah, the real-time crime center, kind of how that's going, and is it up and,
They have a request.
To your point, regarding the fleet, I think it would make sense to at least ask the question, like, we replaced a lot of those vehicles in a short amount of time.
Right.
Are they planning, so those aren't all coming to end of life at the same time as well? Is
Like
there
it
a way
happened
they're,
last time.
yeah, is there a way they're kind of staggering out the use or so of those
Replacing
vehicles?
them.
Yes, so.
and partly there was a lot of CARES and ARP dollars that went in for, one-time monies, and so how are they looking at the future?
And that was one, and I can follow up on with you guys specifically. So the budget was higher last year by like $7 million, and I'm assuming that's because there was some
There was some
one-time spending.
carryover, and there was some carryover from 22 that didn't, for example, the vehicles.
Right,
And
okay, so there was a
that
large
were supposed
vehicle
to be delivered in
purchase.
22, or 22 didn't get delivered till 23.
23, okay.
So we carried over quite a large millions of dollars over to cover that.
Is there a way to track, when I'm reading through the sheriff's budget, is there a way to track some of the capital expenses, if those are coming from ARPA dollars, or which ones are, for instance, like the real-time crime center? There seems to be like, there's some capital expenses. I'm like, well, is that coming out of general fund or is it coming out of money? I mean, ARPA, I guess, was put into the general fund.
Yes.
So it's just kind of hard to
Yes.
follow for me, because it's in the general fund budget, but I'm assuming some of the expenses are being paid for out of some of those one-time monies.
Yes, in 23, we
Right.
set up like the entire real-time crime center budget, and we'll move that forward as they spend down on their federal award.
Oh, okay,
So we
We pulled-
front-loaded that budget.
okay. I don't know if we were able to pull that specific, cause I've been pulling current 2023 spending, but I'm not sure if I could see that specifically. So you can help us with that.
Yes,
Okay.
we can definitely, help you identify
And
that.
make sure that there's not
in the budget.
duplicate expenses included.
Yeah,
Revenue,
yeah.
so.
Like, I think probably just like, how are we doing with the recruitment costs and the, overtime spending, just those big general topics. I'm sure they'll be ready to talk about that a little bit.
Any other departments that you had questions on or expenses?
Ron, would you put that presentation back up with the second slide? Thank you. Because we've already identified a couple of departments to come,
Yeah, I
so we'll
made-
show you those again. The second page.
So we don't have anybody, so the next Monday morning that we have open for strategic planning is October 2nd. That's the first Monday. October 16th is the third Monday. We'd like to add one of October 30th, which would be the fifth Monday of the month. So for October 16th, we would like to bring forward the Fair and Expo. The 30th, we want to have Shrek. We believe they'll be ready to present their budget, county roads. Kyle's probably the first he's hearing about it, but I know Scott's been talking to Kyle about that. Try to give him a little bit of time to actually prep for it. Scraps, we've got the 10-year data built together, but we're working on getting a presentation with them to come before you on November 6th. But we've got other openings, so whenever you would like to slot, when would you like to go through the sheriff's budget, knowing that we should give them a little bit of time to prep for it. Second, maybe a little bit early, but it's 2 weeks away from now. Mr. Walden.
Well, I just took notes from last Monday, and I probably got some of these wrong, but I know the clerk had asked for some additional staff, so I think we wanted to hear from the clerk. And then, I think it makes sense to have the sheriff push out at least to the 16th, give them time to prepare, right? Because it's a big budget. Detention services, I know, there weren't a lot of big changes that you
They
reported.
had a couple.
But I just, since it's such a large part of the budget,
Yep.
I would really appreciate getting an overall presentation and discussion about detention services.
Detention services, the biggest change in there was the NAFCARE contract, which is going out to bid right now. And so that is a yes.
It's a guest, right?
It's a yes. It is showing a $2 million, nearly a $2 million increase over what the current spending was. But that is totally a guess at this time. The only other area, when I talked to Bryce, the food is based upon if the Geiger is completely full, which it is not at the time because we don't have enough COs to actually fill it. So we may have a little bit of savings in that area. Food costs have stabilized, starting to come down a little bit, so we don't see inflation hitting that as much as like fuel right now. Fuel costs are high. Sheriff did budget higher for fuel because they're the biggest user of it, of course. And so I think their budget does include what they're going to need based upon current fuel prices.
So two things. One, I'd really like to have a session with Superior Court.
Yeah.
They were on my list too.
Just say, and then I understand, and my information secondhand, so maybe it's not accurate. If it's not, I apologize for that. But evidently, we had some overtime charges this year out of the commissioner's budget. Is that built in, or are we anticipating
I don't
more
anticipate-
overtime or less overtime? Or I'm not even sure how we encountered overtime.
So the overtime that we have is with the new state laws on minimum wage, and eventually people earning less in about 3 years, people earning, or 2 years, and Ashley could correct me, people earning less than 80,000 will be considered hourly employees. So if they work more than their stated number of hours a week, 37 and a half, they will be eligible for overtime.
So I think we need to get a discussion from Ashley on what that means. So we don't have to do it right now, Ashley, but I think that's a separate discussion. That we really need to see what that impact does and what that means to our employees.
Yeah, and the one other thing, just right now, just a little correction for Randy. It's anything over 40 is overtime, so it's still straight pay from 37.5 to 40, but anything after 40 with our non-reps is overtime. So you have 2 admin in your commissioners group right now that are both non-exempt. And so that's where those overtime numbers are coming from, Al, or the extra wages, so to speak, based on working more than 37.5 right now. And yes, I think it'd be great to put together a full discussion on what's happening in Washington, because this is gonna have a really broad impact for us over the next few years.
Yeah, because I can't ever remember ever having paid overtime for as long as I've been here and stuff, so I was surprised to hear that we're paid overtime this year and stuff, so, yeah.
State legislature.
Yes,
And it's impacting
Every department.
hundreds of employees across the county. And then every year, more employees fall under the state threshold that keeps getting increased out, and they move from an exempt category into a non-exempt category. So then requires a more watchful eye on hours that people are working, so we're not incurring overtime on it.
It's not geographically based, it's just a statewide number. So therefore, because of, the west side and having a higher salary range, it's having a negative impact on us over here for a lot of businesses,
so
not just us.
did it have a negative impact for Gina and Shelley then? Is that where we're experiencing it at? Or, I mean, I'm just trying to get an understanding, because we've never had it for as long as I've been here. I've never had overtime.
It's for the 2 new assistants.
Oh,
But,
okay,
but Al,
yeah,
and we can have this
Yeah, I'd say
conversation
let's just
later.
have the.
We'll have this
Okay.
conversation later, but it will impact more people throughout the county,
okay,
including your office.
okay.
Every year, more
So
people are gonna fall under
Yeah.
that category.
I hate it when things change.
So no, so I mean,
Okay.
that
Basically,
needs a bigger discussion.
Okay,
yeah, by year 2028, they're saying the threshold will project it at $90,000. So anybody making less than $90,000 in 2028 will qualify for overtime. So it's gonna have massive impact if the numbers move where they're expected to move in Washington state.
so when did the commissioners get overtime? No.
Sorry.
Just checking.
2050.
Yeah, 2050 probably.
There's a really
Okay.
nice, there's a really helpful sheet that Ashley and Randy have that can walk the commissioners through kind of how those graduated projected rates are looking to be over the next couple of years.
Okay. Thank you.
More discussion later.
Are
Commissioner Jordan.
we, it would be great, I think, to walk through the mental health sales tax in more detail. Are we?
And
doing
we
that
were,
soon?
we were
Yes.
planning on that. We don't have it together quite yet with Justin. We want this to be more of a holistic conversation with Justin and his group, looking, because we have money sitting in 2 different areas. And so we, kind of like what we have for the REIT spreadsheets, here's our revenue, here's what comes in each year, here's the uses we're currently budgeting for, and then get into the discussion, how much more do you have and what do you want? Yeah, and Justin's the expert, of course. What other programs are there that you could fund, or do you want to fund? And so I'd really like that to be not a disjointed conversation, but more of a combined conversation with Justin. And so we're still working on putting that together.
You have
so
a
that you-
recommended timeframe for it?
I'm hoping that we'll be ready for the 2nd of October. It may be the 16th, but hopefully we're shooting for the 2nd.
And then will we also have a discussion on REIT? Because I think it's good for us just
Yes.
to, again,
Yes.
annually be looking at where REIT is.
Yes. And so
As we know that, housing
filings
has.
have gone down.
Yes, so, I mean, I think it's just a good discussion for us to have as to where.
And we will have those spreadsheets, and then that's gonna drive part also your capital projects. So we will, once we go through this expenses. Any more questions on that? We'll talk about revenue, then we're gonna start talking about capital. And we have some REIT numbers already out there for you, but we will also bring back the spreadsheets that show here's everything that's currently being funded, and that goes out into the futures, because you have a bunch of bonds or debt that is being paid for by REIT for the next 15, 20 years. So we've got that scheduled out so that you don't spend it again. Try not to do that.
So on that topic of capital
Yes.
requests, is there a way to see all those in one area? Or do I have to go through each?
No, we have, there is,
Okay.
so in your second book, in tab 18, it talks about all the capital requests.
Okay.
But we also will give you a spreadsheet that just looks at the 24 requests also. And so you can say, well, this is, which ones do I want to fund?
More of a decision guide funding matrix type of a look at
So
it.
for example, next year, we'll get 1.2 million for the credit enhancement. That can only be used for the fairgrounds. We have some fairgrounds projects out there that you should use that money for, because that's the only thing that money can be used for.
Right.
Why use REIT 1 when I've got this other 1.2 million? You could use many funding streams, but that 1.2 can only be spent
Right.
on that,
Okay.
so we should use that money first for that.
So you're gonna put together those different options?
Yes.
Okay, but if I go to the second binder.
Second binder, tab 18, which is
It's capital projects or capital funds.
Got it, thank you.
Then you can kind of see this whole 6-year.
Cause I know like the sheriff has requests at the
Yes.
bottom of his budget, but then you've also put it.
We put them in
Put
that
them all
one,
together.
yes.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
And those numbers, again, are fluid. For example, the top priority for juvenile right now is electronic eyes for their sinks and toilets, because their customers like to destroy stuff and flood stuff out. But Gil is putting together numbers for that right now. He's going out to bids. We've got a placeholder number in there. It could be a little bit lower, it could be higher. I don't quite know yet. So these will be fluid. Also in there, you'll see we have the assessor treasurer system, because just as we're replacing PeopleSoft, their Ascend system is just as old and needs to be updated. But we had put 7 million because that was kind of our first number. It looks like it's going to be between 3 and 4 million. So these numbers are fluid. They will keep changing. We'll keep updating it as we have better information for you. Back to expenses.
No, go ahead, because I had a question and all of a sudden it got away from me.
So with Superior Court,
Oh, I know what it was.
when they come in, we may need to make it a new meeting, just so that way it meets their time schedule. So there isn't any rationale as to why they can't come and talk to us. Just letting you know that we may need to just, look at schedules to make a new meeting. Because I know that's when we tended to, Chris, meet with them, it's kind of like right at noon or 1 o'clock.
That's correct. That's usually when they're
Trying to
available.
accommodate their schedules
Yeah.
as we were
Yeah.
trying to figure out these meetings that we had. And then the other thing is that first week of October, I have a civic leader event back in Ohio.
Okay.
I will see if I can call in, and if the government shuts down, I think I said this last week, before that, I will be here. So it's all up in the air for me for that first week of October, but
So we cannot have departments present. We can go more than 2 in a day too.
you can have, I just wouldn't be able to be here. I don't want you to not do things. Commissioner Kearns can run the meeting and does that, so just awareness. I prefer for the sheriff not to be here that day.
Correct. Yeah. I think it's too early. I think with their presentation, I think they should have more time to get ready for
But
it.
I'm super happy to have the Superior Court come in that week.
So, and if we are gonna purposely work through the noon hour, we can bring in lunch for the commissioners, right? Maybe not for the judges, but at least for the. Okay, because they're in a tighter budget than we are. Oh, I did remember my question.
There you go. Mr. French.
So, last week, Tom Konis, informed us that, we got 1.4 billion with the capital B, a lot of letters, lots of zeros, for adding to the tax roll for 2024.
Yes.
Great news. And as I look at our housing construction starts, we seem to be still pacing really well. Didn't drop off as much as we thought it was. So we're still getting new housing starts. When a contractor turns a home that is under construction over to the owner, is that transfer also charged the REIT? Or is it?
I believe
If it is
if the contractor owned it and then sells it to the individual, I believe that's when it would be recorded
Okay.
through REIT.
So it depends upon the nature of the contract between the owner and the contractor as to whether we get REIT out of it or not. I was just trying to figure if we've got a nice big number for increase in construction dollars, how much of that would translate into REIT or how much of it is exempt from REIT? So that's what I was trying to get to.
Well, it translates to REIT, but what isn't happening because of rising interest rates is all the refinancing that would normally.
Yeah, right. That would drive a lot of it too.
So that's
That is what
what's
drove,
That's what's
that is what drove
dropped
a lot
off.
of it,
Yeah, okay.
especially our REIT dollars. Yes.
Yeah, forgot about the refis.
That was a lot of it.
Okay.
So we just need interest rates to go down, because as they keep going down, it's like,
People are selling.
Yeah, I had a conversation that, it's like as rates go down, you just keep refining, like once a year, it seems like, for a while there.
And you think that'll happen in our lifetime? No, I'm just kidding.
It did. It
Did
already
it
happened.
once, I know. We all live in hope now, yeah,
Yes.
all we can afford.
But then, and that's what's causing part of the housing crisis you're having, because people
Yeah.
aren't selling because they're not getting rid of their
Yeah, no one wants
bottom
to,
rates.
no one wants to sell because you gotta buy in a bigger rate, yeah,
And it's, houses are staying on the market longer
longer,
now,
yeah.
too, right now. It's not turning over like it was the last few years.
So from the
Just a
clerks,
second.
is anything you, oh, sorry.
I was just going to recap the departments and the days, just so we were clear on that. We go back,
We want
Ron,
to go back to that slide, Ron, and so we can start putting departments to dates. So we've got sheriff, clerk, detention, superior court.
I think I heard sheriff on the 16th
16th, yep.
and probably have clerks and detention services go the 2nd.
Mike, do you think detention service could be ready for that?
Which date, next week?
2nd?
2 weeks?
Yeah, I'm sure they
It
can.
has to be clerk and superior court.
Yeah, Bryce will be out of town next
Together,
week,
okay.
so.
Oh, that would be.
It has just to cover the budget and the capital request.
It might make more sense to have clerk and superior court go together.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, if superior court
I think they would be
can't come
better.
on the 2nd because of scheduling, then yeah, maybe plug detention services in, but try for superior
I would
court.
say
clerk.
detention services, we could run them possibly with the sheriff on the 16th. That would give them
Fair
both
next
times.
No, I think we can do,
We can easily do 3.
just keep them doing hour blocks.
Yep.
The 2nd though, the superior court, if we're gonna do noon, then it still has, unless you shift the time you wanna meet, you still have some openings prior to that as well.
Well, plus we can also have other discussions. Hopefully we'll
Mental
have a REIT discussion,
Yeah,
a mental health sales tax. We can look back at the outside agencies spreadsheet because hopefully we'll have some more clarity on that, which will then help us know how much money we have toward capital projects.
So mental health, REIT on the 2nd, clerk on the 2nd, and then
Clerk and superior court.
superior court at noon.
If they can make
on the
that.
2nd.
And detention the 16th with sheriff.
16th.
The 16th, okay.
Mike.
Go to that.
And that still leaves a spot on the sixth if something comes up that we may want to, but that's
If-
kind of
if
towards the
there's-
end of the.
You're at the end. I mean,
But we'll have more data at that point, sales
True.
tax data.
we'll have more sales tax data at that point. That's correct.
And we're likely gonna need to have a couple of sessions on capital.
Oh,
Today
right,
will be,
right.
you know, the initial discussions,
So
give
maybe
you some
capital on
thoughts and
the
awareness.
30th and the
We'll need
6th.
we'll need to do some more touches on capital.
And from the 7th to the 11th, I'm out of town for a national transit meeting.
Is that October or was that November?
October 7th to the 11th. I'm in Orlando, Florida for a national AFTA meeting.
Did, Commissioner CUNY, did you mention something about the airport last time for budget presentation, or am I misremembering?
Typically, the airport,
They're gonna schedule
Oh,
with us.
they,
so
they
come
come
in
to a
and present.
legislative session because you
Oh.
guys have to actually, by resolution,
Vote on it.
approve their budget. And so they come to a Tuesday morning briefing.
Okay, got it.
And then it is on the following week's
But they can
consent.
do it Monday or Tuesday, whatever.
They can do a Monday or a
whatever we need to
Tuesday,
do.
yeah.
So,
But they drive that whenever they're ready, so.
like I said, last time, I think it's just, I told them to go ahead and just call and we'll fit them in wherever they need to be. It's usually about a half-hour presentation.
Half-hour
At
presentations,
most.
the most.
So it's pretty high level because it's already been through their board and all of that. It's just a formality for the commissioners and the council to approve the budget.
Yeah, we don't contribute anything to the airport, and they don't contribute anything, so, and we're still in the black.
Well, and maybe this is your next slide, but the three hearings that we have on the books,
Yes.
how do you, what do we anticipate for those? Do you guys like go over some
so,
general budget?
So the first one, we typically talk
Projections.
about revenue.
Okay.
So that will be the first, I think it's October 3rd, the first Tuesday. The last Tuesday in October, the 31st, I guess it is. Or is it the week before that?
I think it's
we
the
did
week
the
before.
I should look at the front of my book. I have the little handy dandy thing right there.
October 24th at 5:30 p.m.
That where we typically look at expenses for the general fund. And then the last one is kind of the overall budget, with other funds, capital.
5 or 5:30.
It's at 5:30.
One on the 24th.
On the 24th.
And the other two are at 2 p.m. Normal.
So do we have like is there like a special time for folks to come in and give public comment on the budget then?
They are, yeah, public hearings.
It's a public.
Oh, wait, at the end of the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they can specifically do testimonies for that. What was so it's the 3rd, the 24th, and what
It
was
is the 3rd, the 24th, and November 7th. Anything else on expenses for today? Then
Randy,
Scott,
you, in your assumptions, you had highlighted that travel was actually 800,000 over last year's budget.
so we were
A
last
little over
year's
$500,000
budget,
in
$500,000.
sheriff. What were
Um,
the other was that?
the others were very small. It's
Sprinkled over quite a few.
yeah.
So
So actually,
The other travel is just going to post walls, it doesn't go any distance.
Well,
I do have a breakdown by department.
what I was gonna highlight is maybe there's not a need to bring individual departments in, but maybe the commissioners just wanna say, nope, flat line.
We do have a breakdown for the last 3 years by department or by agency, so we've already prepared that, did not bring it with me today, but we can get that to you as well. I'm ready to move on to, just wanted to talk about the interest income to see if there was something you guys wanted to do on that. This is basically fairly much the same spreadsheet as last time, except I took the general fund off of here. I've got correct double underlines for you, Mary.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess I need an extra copy for me. So the total that the special revenue, enterprise, and internal service funds, if you annualize this year, the total they will end up with, if the first 8 months deal with anything, would be $8.1 million. I know Mary asked the question, what about the enterprise funds since they act like businesses? So if you took their projected revenue out, and if also you took out the road fund, that would leave about 4.1 of one-time money that you could use for capital or any other purpose if you did decide to move that interest to the general fund based upon the Attorney General opinion from 2010. So again, this will also tell us how much money we will have that we could program for capital expenses if this is something that you wanted to do. Again, we haven't done this in the past, but it is something that is available to you.
Right. And again, we haven't done it in the past because we really haven't had the kind of revenue.
You haven't had that need to really do it.
Yes. Because since I've been.
In the
for most
past,
part,
we've had
it's
enough
like
sales
0%
tax and everything else.
Or 1% return,
Yes.
so.
What am I looking at
Okay,
here?
so the first column is the actuals for 8 months. And then the second column just annualizes that 8 months. So basically it takes,
This
if
is
you look
interest
at
income.
interest income. So like the treasurer's O&M, they physically earned $5,200 for the first 8 months, which would annualize out to $7,800 for a year. So.
Which is not the skip pool or any of that.
No,
because
that
that's
is
all
not
there.
the skip pool. This is,
That.
no. These are totally separate funds. So these are the special revenue funds. Again, the enterprise and the internal service funds. And these are only the funds where you can take the interest. For example, vet services, you will see they are off the list because their RCW specifically states that interest belongs to them. The other one you will not see on here is the trial court improvement, because in the resolution, when you created that, you said that interest stays with them. So those two, per the AG opinion, are not included on this list.
Could we change that?
Could, because you could change the last one, but not the first one, because the first one is in RCW.
Okay.
You would have to change your resolution on the second one in order to do it.
Okay.
Can you remind me
Yes.
what's currently happening?
So today,
If we don't
each of
take
these,
this action,
today,
what's
each
going
of
on?
these funds they keep their interest. And in REIT 2, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, because it's basically used for capital. REIT 1 and REIT 2 are used for capital anyway. So whether you take it and apply it to capital, or it would just be less restricted if you pulled it out of REIT. That would be the only thing. It'd just be less restricted, because REIT 1 and REIT 2 have restrictions on what you can use them for. So, for example, today, if you were looking at your special revenue funds and you see Behavioral Health Fund 148, that money just goes to them, and it's just additional money. And the reason it's so high is because they have a lot of cash. They have almost as much cash basically as the general fund has, so.
So they would be budgeting for this in their budget right now?
They probably have, and that's why we would need to
Right.
get something to them so they can change their budgets. Actually, behavioral health, we don't even have anything from them yet in our binders.
Because most of their stuff is their multi-year grant funding
It's
with the
programs.
state ASO, ASO contracts.
So, thoughts? You don't need to make a decision today if you guys want to think about it and mull it over. I think pretty soon we will need to make a decision as we go into how much money are we going to have for capital.
Just historically, you're saying there just wasn't as much interest?
No, as you know, interest rates and savings accounts or investments have not been very high. So we haven't had that interest gain in the past, since I've been here, so 2018. So this is kind of the first time, probably last year there was some of that starting to happen, but this is the first year of really seeing, where like in the savings account, you can get 4%. Well, 4% is quite a bit compared to
Versus a quarter of a percent.
22%, yes, that we've seen in the past. So as interest rates have risen, so are investing rates and savings rates, and so we're starting to see this happen.
So if rates were to fall again, the value of this would not be as significant.
So it's really one-time money.
Yes.
I mean, I think you gotta look at it as it's one-time money, it's not long-term money. So, and traditionally, we've looked at one-time money as kind of capital.
Capital expense.
One-time expenditures then. I don't have a problem doing this. I think though what I'd like to see is a memo going out to the department that says, here's the RCW that allows us to do this. As we've seen rising interest rates, the commissioners are contemplating doing this and kind of see what the crazy feedback we're gonna get.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, but it's right, I mean, it is different than in the past. So I'm not sure if they fully thought, if they are anticipating the amount of interest in budgeting it or not.
Some are, some aren't.
Some aren't.
Some are, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I see what you're saying. In essence, over the last year or so, you see this rise. If we were to kind of cut that off and use that for one-time capital, but in the future, interest rates go back down and it's not really an option. So,
Well, it would just be less valuable of an option, less money
yeah,
towards
maybe $1
capital.
million versus 4 or something.
And also in the past, with our expenses, our growth in sales tax, you've had enough money to do capital stuff, whereas now that is slowing down and expenses are going up, 6% to WASAC, the environmental, the air quality
air,
went way up, like 12%. So our revenue isn't keeping paces with our increasing expenses, both M&O, maintenance operations, but also salaries and benefits, and therefore we have less money to give to capital. So.
And Randy, if I'm correct here, many of these funds in the special revenue account are not actively managed by departments. Many of them are passively managed kind of by you and your team. So a handful of them, like REIT, is managed in the budget office. You can decide to put it in there or not. It's not going to be an impact. It's only your decision. Many of these are like that. There's a handful of them that are like Conservation Futures. Our parks team manages that. They do build some interest income into their budget for uses in Conservation Futures. So that could be a different consideration for you all. But I just want to call that out, as a lot of these things are passively managed primarily through the budget office.
Commissioner Jordan.
I think it's a good idea to send out some kind of notice to the departments that would be affected, just to see what the feedback would be. Maybe there wouldn't be much, maybe it would be, oh no, that'll be terrible, you'll ruin our whatever project, and it'd be good to know that. And I was just gonna ask the question about the behavioral health and housing group. Sounds like we don't have a lot of information from them budget-wise, but it's probably very complicated. Do we want to do a presentation from them to kind of get some more information on that?
I think as we do the mental health sales tax, we're gonna know kind of on the behavioral health side. I know partly, and Justin will be able to talk about it, partly they have to carry a larger fund balance because on the BHASO side, as they spend the dollars and then they seek reimbursement from Medicaid, but those reimbursements can take 1 year, 2 years to get those reimbursements back, which is part of why you've got to have that fund balance for liability. And that was part of, as we shifted from the regional support network to the BHASO, part of why that, fund balance is there and needs to be there, because we don't want to have, for some reason, spend all of it and then we're out, we've got the liability. So there's some reasons for having these fund balances that we need. Do they need the interest unless the grant agreement requires the interest, which is one thing we need to pay attention to, is some grants will require that the interest stays with that program. Some do not require it to stay with the program.
And that is why also you won't see our two grants accounts on this list, Fund 150, 151, because most grants, or some of them do require it to stay there. And so we purposely did not include them on this list.
So which is why I think letting the departments know so they can then be looking to their grants to ensure whether their grant allows them to do that or not. So, Commissioner French.
And for budgeting purposes, this budget does not include any of the revenue that will be coming from Measure 1. So Measure 1 and the behavioral dollars and everything will be on top of what we have here to pay for additional programs.
The only extra revenue this includes is sales tax revenue over what we project this year end to be.
Yeah.
There's no property tax, there's no road shift, there's no, nothing else in here, no Measure 1, nothing else is in this budget at all.
Okay. But we'll have basically 5 months to be able to program that before we actually start receiving the money.
Yes, if Measure 1 were to pass, the tax would not go into effect until April 1st of 2024. So the earliest you would get any money from that would be June of 2024.
Okay. I imagine we do a amended budget to reflect that.
We would present budget amendments just like we've done a couple of times so far this year.
Can be built into
And I'm sure we will have one more.
Yeah.
As we get into year end and find out where things are, like maybe overtime, we may have to cover some of the fire overtime with additional budget. See if we need to or not.
Thank you.
Deputy overtime,
Deputies, emergency management, things like that.
since we don't do fire.
I'm sorry, but of the fire, the big fire, yes, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of our overtime that we spent on the fire.
But we're hoping that some of that will get
We
reimbursed.
hope some of that one will be reimbursed, that's correct. But depending on when that reimbursement happens, we may have to authorize more budget to make it through year end, especially for emergency management, because they had a very tight budget anyway.
Commissioner Jordan?
This is helpful. Do you have anything similar for past years?
I do.
Can you send that to me? Maybe.
Yes, I have 22 actual. I did not build 21 actual yet, so I do have 22 actual.
Is that substantially different?
It's substantially lower.
Okay.
Very much lower. Because as Mary pointed out, interest rates started rising later in 22 with the Fed's pushing rates up. We've seen the benefit of that in 23. And until the Feds change rates down, I would say that benefit will probably stay around where we're at.
Because we saw a delay in the consumer interest rates going up as for investments. As the Fed was raising rates, a lot of loans are based on, whatever the federal rate is, plus or minus, plus a percentage or whatever it is, points. But on the savings rate side, it was a lot delayed as rates were going up from the feds that we saw. They weren't just automatically raising those savings accounts rates, which is refunding interest. So that's why we're really not seeing those increases until, I think, 2023.
Yeah, the high interest savings accounts came out early in 23.
Yeah. And some of them kind of late 22, but again, that would have been able for us to take advantage of any of that, so.
And they won't start coming back down until 25.
Most likely.
So.
Okay, the last thing I wanted to just kind of show you, and has to do the driving, is kind of how the spreadsheet that you're going to have for capital projects, how we've got it set up. And it's really based upon how much money is going to be in each funding category. So how much we have, for the general fund versus how much we have for REAP 1, REAP 2. And we will, once we have set those, it's kind of hard to see, we need to blow that up to about 200. Eyes aren't that bad.
You handed it out.
Okay, you have it. It's still pretty tiny, but
You bring a little mic.
I'm gonna bring those page readers next time that blow up for. But basically, as you go down this, for example, if we said we had, now if you don't have a copy.
I got the copy. Yeah, it was under the other pile.
Yeah, I got it. So basically, as you decide, hey, I wanna spend, this many dollars, or I wanna fund, let's say you go down to juvenile services and say, we really gotta fix those urinals with the electronic readers. I really don't wanna use REIT, I wanna use general fund dollars. If you put that number in there and say, I'm gonna fund the full 215,000 out of general fund, on the far right, it's going to show you that you don't need to fund anymore, or you could split it up and say, hey, I want 100,000 out of REIT, 115 out of the general fund. And then when you go to the very bottom, it'll show you a remaining amount available. So it's gonna keep, as you enter things in, it's gonna say, well, now you only have so much more dollars that you can allocate. So this will be a spreadsheet that we will give to you to, whether you like to do it on pencil, print it out, do it on pencil, whether you want to do it electronically in a spreadsheet form, it'll allow you to say, this is what I think we should fund, and this is where we think we want to fund that out of. How much do we want to fund out of REAP 1, REAP 2, and you can see we grayed out areas if the funding is not available for that specific project. So,
But like the credit enhancement one-time funds, the 1.2 million, that
Yes.
really has to be used on the fair.
can only be used at the fairgrounds.
Just because you don't have other things blacked out, but
No, but it's blacked out all the way down. So you can use other things for the fair, but you can only use that credit enhancement on the fairgrounds. So
Okay.
if you look in that column of credit enhancement, it's black and the only white spots are for the fairgrounds. You could use other things for the fairgrounds, but the only thing you can use that credit enhancement on is fairground. And that's because it has to be used on a public facility where we've spent more than $10 million on it since 1999 or something like that.
Yeah, like June something of 1999, it's on date.
So Plans Ferry doesn't even qualify for it, so.
Fairgrounds is our only.
Those are the only two things the fair next are asking for?
Right now,
Usually they have a whole host of things.
Oh,
I know we did the roof and the HVAC, but I thought there was a whole lot more. I'm surprised to only
One
see
of the-
two things on here.
One
I
of the
guess.
barns, they want to do a roof.
I thought there were
at some
three,
point.
but is there only two?
Yeah, the horse
Oh,
barn. I thought they
yeah,
wanted to
one
do
of
roof on
those-
it.
Oh, so Josh, also, we've scaled this down to the 24 ask. There are other things out there in 25, 6, and 7.
Maybe, okay.
So when you look in your second book, you're gonna see all the other asks
Gotcha, okay.
in it. But we were just on this sheet focusing on the 24 numbers.
And we did take a little creative freedom on this $1 million request for the fire suppression and sprinklers. I believe Aaron had staged that into a future period, but given
Did put
the
it
funds
into
we have available, we
26.
moved it forward for her.
So they had put it into 26. Thinking there wouldn't be funds available.
For a while, so.
Now we've got this one-time money that we could use.
What is the credit
So
enhancement? Is that a special state
in 2021,
fund?
the PFD issued
yeah.
bonds, but they used our credit,
Oh, okay.
and so they got a better interest rate.
Got it.
And so part of the agreement was
We would do the refinancing.
we got part of the savings, the savings that they
And
got.
we said we'd spend it on,
Our
That was-
CW requires
yep.
us to spend it on a similar item.
so a visitor or
Public
a,
facilities district, so
Got it.
public district,
Right.
facility type district, which is what the fairgrounds is.
And
for us.
the only project the only area we have that qualifies is the fairground.
right, that makes sense.
Randy, where does the,
Commissioner French was the one.
oh,
He knew about doing that
Do what?
on when we refinanced with
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah,
public facilities
Yep.
district, because you guys have done that in the past.
yep.
So what line item do we have to increase to get bigger font?
That'd be my paper budget.
so just to clarify, at the bottom says general fund 2.26 and it's got kind of totals.
Yes,
Is that what's available?
that's the remaining. Now, this is based upon today. So today, based upon this budget, no more expenses going in, even though we've noted some today, no more savings, no more special revenue taken in. We've got 2.7 or whatever the number is. Oh, because we have some one-time money. There's some one-time money. We basically have 760,000 that's currently in the budget. And we have 1.5 million of one-time money for next year from fund balance. So for example, unemployment compensation is overfunded by $500,000. We were gonna bring that in next year. And we project about $1 million coming out of planning because the general fund has given the planning department, the building department about $1 million, overfunded them for about $1 million. So we always do a settle and adjust, we'll bring that back next year. So that's how we got to 2 million to 60 or whatever that number was.
And then on the back page with the helicopter, we know we just approved the.
Yeah, but we haven't figured out where the funding's coming from yet, so
But we got the
We-
$500,000 of grant.
we have a $500,000 in grants, so this $2 million, it's a $3.3 million helicopter. There's a $500,000 in grants, 1.8, about 900,000 for the sale. That takes us down to needing about 2 million more, which is why we put $2 million as needed.
But since we're showing it as,
We tied it to their sheets where they requested an additional $2 million. So we could fix it and we can change their sheet to show 3.3 for the helicopter, $500,000 for the grant, 900,000 for other revenue. But we were trying to tie out to their sheets that they presented, so.
I think it gets confusing.
It's more clear if we do it the
Yes.
other way, but for this today, I didn't want to change that until we talked about it so I'd be happy to change it to the way I would normally look at it.
Because I think otherwise it's confusing to us as we talk about it.
And plus, that's gonna be a 2025
Right.
payment, hopefully, and hopefully they have more grants by then. But we will need to identify money in case those grants don't come in.
On the valley is expected to split, right?
Valley covers half.
And and we are meeting with Eric Lamb, SNR meeting with Eric Lamb and Chief Ellis, next Monday.
Is there, so these requests are forms that the department's sent?
Yeah, so you're gonna find them in the first binder or in your in your general fund sheet under that department. So if you look in the sheriff, you'll see their requests. Juvenile, they have theirs all ranked by, here's my 2024 requests ranked 1 through 7.
Oh, okay.
Here's my 25 requests. You know, they've ranked them all in order of priority. We've entered them in the order they've ranked them. So, thank you.
So what tab do we find that? Sorry.
So for example, juvenile, if you look in the first book,
You have to go to each tab.
you have to go to each tab.
Okay. That's all.
Or if you go to the second book, tab 18, you will see the whole capital budget pulled together.
Anything else?
Then you don't have to go to each one separately.
And then the special revenue for information technology, sorry if I missed that, is that coming from?
ARP, so we had a designated,
It looks like a deficit, but it's coming from,
it's coming from ARP, so
or it's coming over.
yes, it's a carryover
Okay.
of. We're gonna have,
We changed our ARP
in midstream.
plan midstream, so it's looking a little different, but the $4 million will come straight from the federal pot of money to the IT fund to pay for the rest of the ERP project. The first half is this year, the second half is next year. And then the rest is through the general fund.
No, the rest, that's part of their, when we allocated them their portion, this is some extra monies that was also to be used for other technology. The next 2 years are some big server replacement years
Oh, okay.
in their 7-year cycle. And we knew we weren't going to have a lot of general fund dollars. And so what we're suggesting is that we use our special revenue for the next 2 years from the general fund to get through those cycles instead of taking general fund dollars. I prefer you to use those in other places. So that is our recommendation. You can change that if you want, but that it would be our recommendation. The next 2 years will be heavy capital from them, both with laptops, but also mainly servers. Servers
So
and
do I
switches.
need to worry about the
No,
special revenue lines?
they're-
They're all covered.
They're all
And
covered.
the
Those are covered.
The vehicles for Spokane Valley Police.
Right,
That's
just
in
denoting
the
the
valley
valley.
budget, so if
Okay.
the valley is buying 16 cars.
Through
this
our
is
contract with them. Got
Through
it.
our contract with them, so that's already a funding source, that's why it's under special revenue, because
Got
they're
it.
paying for it.
Got it, okay.
We're not paying for it, but you'll see we didn't put the 20 vehicles that sheriff's office had requested. That again is, where do you want to pull that money from? It's a funding request that you have out there. And that will be part of your presentation on the 16th as well. Because as you know, you've spent a lot of money on vehicles lately, so.
It'd be good for them to be prepared to kind of show for the newbies, like what is been the replacement cycle over the last, like 5-6 years? And what are the anticipated, what's the longer term view? Rather than just one year.
Yeah, I mean, they trade them out at 100,000, is it 110, is it? Yeah. What's the program?
Died.
What's the program?
So, yeah.
So, but it's just good information for them to have and for you to have as well. Anything, that's all we had for today.
I just want to highlight $70 million in requests to take the Public Works building off their 18 million, because there's a funding plan for that, but it still leaves, $50 million, and the sources of funds are nowhere close to covering those things. So nothing else, want to make sure that the commissioners are tuning into that one, and as Randy mentioned, there'll be some these things will change a little bit as you make decisions on the other operating budget items that might be able to contribute more to capital, but it's short, and there's not nearly enough to be able to cover all the requests in here.
So many responses, I'm not gonna touch it one.
And there's a few things in here too, like on Fair Expo, that's why we want to have the Fair Expo come in and provide the business plan, because what I've been working with Doug and Aaron on is it's an enterprise fund. You need to be self-sufficient. You need to be able to set your rates, adjust for your fair prices so that you're able to reinvest back in the facility that you need. We did the roof and the HVAC this last year through some ARP and other stuff, so that was very helpful. But and we do have that credit enhancement facility that we can be used from stuff. But think about long-term capital planning in terms of your revenue expenses and start planning to tuck some stuff away for what those long-term capital needs are, so you're not just looking for the general fund or REIT or whatnot. I think the campgrounds one is going to be a really interesting conversation. I think there's a lot of things that we could do with that campground to make it more year-round usable, much more accessible via people being able to come and go on their own versus having someone there to staff it, adding some nice trees and things that just make it more interesting to people who want to camp there. So that was probably going to be more than $700,000 if we were to make a greater investment to make it more year-round available.
Okay, so we'll prepare a memo, get it out to all the departments affected by the interest thing, and we'll reach out to these departments with some dates to have presentations. And we'll also get you the 2 years of the outside agency stuff.
Commissioner Jordan, can you remind me on the binders, you were planning to kind of post them or share them publicly? Have you done that?
Yeah, they are posted on the public website.
And where is that?
It's kind of down a rabbit trail. Website folks, if you can help us out at all, be seen easily. We're under executive management and then budget and finance. And then there's like a 2024 budget page or an annual budget page. So we're a couple links down, but it is out there. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. I know you guys are working hard, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. It's gonna take us to miscellaneous. I have a miscellaneous that I just got this on Friday. It's a letter of recommendation from the commissioners. I don't have one for everybody, so send that to Kristen. So I got a request that Launch Northwest is putting in for a grant to the Gates Foundation. When I was talking to Ben Small about that, I said we'd be happy to write a letter of support. So I asked him for a draft letter. I got this, and so seeing if you guys are okay with us signing on to a letter of support for Launch Northwest. For Gates grant.
Grant go to.
Launch Northwest. It's just us saying we support them in getting that funding. Just like, when people request funds from the feds.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do we need to take a motion? I'm not sure.
Do you want to now, or do you want to?
I just do it now, and then, because I'd like to try to get this done quickly.
Okay.
I don't think it's gonna change much.
Okay. All right, Madam Chair, I move to approve the drafting and signing of a letter to the Gates Foundation for seeking funds for Launch Northwest to be signed by the board at other than an open public meeting.
Second.
Have a tie for a second. It's always a tie, isn't it? Who can do it?
I might have snuck in just
Yeah.
barely. Thank you.
I think so.
I got witnesses out.
And we may have it
Didn't
ready.
sound like that here, and I'm closer to the chair.
We may be able to have it ready for tomorrow, so when we're signing everything, we can just all sign it. So I'll have Pat help me take a look at it just to make sure everything looks good. So yeah, Pat. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to sign it other than an open public meeting, a letter of support for a grant that Launch Northwest. Open up for public testimony since this is a actionable item. Anyone wishing to raise their hand, please star 9 if you're on the phone or Zoom, raise your hand. I'm seeing no one inside the conference room, seeing no one online. Second call. Third and final call for anyone wishing to testify on the commissioner signed letter of support in regards to a Gates Foundation grant for Long Northwest. Seeing nobody in the room or online, I will close the open public testimony and call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for that. Are there any other miscellaneous items before we talk about executive session items? Commissioner French.
Yeah, I think we touched on this earlier, but I'm just thinking about, with regard to the public hearing tomorrow on item 6A, the Building Code Council on Friday kind of changed course, I think based, from what I'm told, based upon recommendation from the State Attorney General's office with regard to the litigation and those that were standing down on the federal side of the equation, ramping their interest back up and reintroducing the litigation because the Building Code Council had basically done squat with regard to addressing some of this concern. So, but since this is a hearing item for tomorrow, I'm wondering if we can just go ahead and take an action today to eliminate it off of so that nobody shows up thinking that we're going to be addressing that and not doing anything on it, because there's clearly not the need now. And with the extension of March 15th, the landscape will either change or we're going to federal court. So I'm just thinking that at least we can let those that thought they were going to show up know that they don't need to show up. So that's my request. Let's just eliminate it off the agenda now so that no one shows up.
Can we eliminate it now, or do we need to wait till tomorrow? State that we're gonna be removing it tomorrow.
No, I mean, certainly.
Defer to you.
Yeah, certainly as far as removing it, yes, the board can take action today to remove that, to cancel that public hearing, and then that would, I think, probably be the best way to do it, just as far as giving the public some notice. Because Gina can then update the agenda and post that public hearing will be canceled, so that hopefully nobody inadvertently shows up.
And so if we cancel it today, then it'll just show up as a canceled item, and I'll just reiterate that we canceled it today, and it will not be an actionable item.
Correct.
I'm just trying to give the help to folks that might have otherwise thought that they had to show up, that we don't need to anymore.
Very good. Take a motion.
Can I just ask a question? Just to clarify, what was the change? The Building Code Council's delaying its regulations?
They delayed the implementation of the building code from October 29th until March 15th. And basically, as I obviously wasn't in the executive session, but from what I understand, the plaintiff for the federal litigation dropped their litigation predicated upon the Building Code Council addressing certain issues.
Got it.
Building Code Council has not done anything, so it's my understanding the AG suggested you need to address these issues, you need more time, not enough time to do it before October 29th, let's extend it to March 15th. So, hopefully the Building Code Council will come in and make the changes that were requested, otherwise we're going back to court. So it basically was to buy time, but what it does now is it gives more time for all of those folks affected by the fire to go ahead and get a set of drawings in, get vested.
Right.
We don't have to do anything with regard to changing our ordinances and stuff. There's a clear path forward for property owners now. Thank you. And stuff, so.
So I'm up for a motion.
So move.
I move that we strike item 6A from tomorrow's September 19th, 2023, 2 p.m. consent agenda.
Second.
I have a
You're
motion and a second
gonna be
to
lazy
strike.
about it. I'm
Well,
gonna step
You're gonna just delay the, jeez.
Move what, Al? They got a second.
Awful lot of words there to say we're gonna not do it.
We have a motion and second to cancel item 6A on tomorrow's September 19th, 2023 agenda. Any further discussion? Okay, I will open this up for public testimony since we are taking action. If anyone would like to testify on striking item number 6A from tomorrow's agenda. Not seeing anyone in line, in the room or online or on the phone. Second call. Third and final call for anyone wishing to testify on striking item 6A from tomorrow's agenda. I will now close the public testimony and look to my fellow commissioners for the, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Any other miscellaneous items? Okay, I believe we have some executive session items.
We do. Do we want that one now?
No, I think we're down to two now, having removed that item. So we have two executive sessions, both under pending potential litigation pursuant to RCW 423110-1I. First one will be approximately 20 minutes, the second approximately 10. The second one should include the board, CEO Scott Simmons, myself, and got anybody else for this?
Randy Bischoff.
Randy Bischoff for the second one, and then I will let Scott list who should be present for the first one.
So the first one is, in addition to the board, myself, Chris Anderson, will be Jesse Ferrari, Beth O'Keefe, and Kat Nichols, and Pat Bell. That will be the entirety that will be the first one.
And no action on either item, no.
So we do not anticipate any action on the two executive session items. Their total of 30 minutes is what we anticipate. At the end of those 30 minutes, since there will be no action taken, we will adjourn for the morning or the day today, and we will see everybody back tomorrow morning. It is 11:16, so we will be in executive session until 11:46.